In this video, we are going to talk about AR, some of its recent price action, the important support and resistance areas, and where we can expect the price of AR to go in the next few days and weeks. So we'll start by looking at the weekly chart. And what we can see right here is that AR has been in a very clear, devastating downtrend since the cycle of 2021, and basically since this very significant rally in 2024, we have just seen AR continuously dump without any significant rallies, and currently it is very close to its all-time lows actually. If we zoom in on this part of the chart, we can see that AR hit its all-time low back in the October liquidation event, and then it revisited the same areas back in March and April of this year, and then it revisited this area back in February of this year when we saw Bitcoin going all the way down to 60k. Since then, Bitcoin got a significant relief rally to 82k, and we've seen AR follow it and get a relief rally of its own. And since then, Bitcoin dumped all the way back down to 60k, but AR actually didn't dump all the way back down to the all-time low in this area from back in February. So AR has actually been outperforming Bitcoin in recent months, which is quite atypical for altcoins. This is not something that we've seen most altcoins do recently. This is not very normal for altcoins in a bear market, since in a bear market most altcoins underperform Bitcoin. So this is quite impressive performance by AR, and we can see it actually starting to create potentially a structure of higher highs and higher lows right here, a bit of a trend reversal. We can see that this low is actually a bit higher than this October liquidation event low, and AR may be creating another higher low right here. This is definitely possible since I am expecting Bitcoin to get a bit of a relief rally sometime pretty soon. Bitcoin went all the way back down to the support area of about 60k, and it is currently very oversold according to the daily RSI, as I showed in previous videos. So I think that a relief rally for Bitcoin to around the 70k area, potentially even a bit higher than that, is quite likely. And if that does happen and AR follows it, then it could actually create a higher low right here and start getting a trend reversal, which would be a very positive sign for AR after many months and years of AR performing very poorly. So this could actually be a very significant decision point for AR. I still don't think that it's very likely because I am quite bearish about altcoins in general, and I still think that we are most likely in a bear market. And even if Bitcoin does get the relief rally, I would expect it to eventually head all the way back down to 60k and probably even break below it and create new lows. So once that happens, I think the chances for AR to sustain this trend reversal are quite low, and it will likely just continue creating lower and lower lows. But in the short term, I do think that it's possible to get a significant rally, and it is actually one of the better looking altcoin structures, at least in the last couple of months. In the longer term, not so much. It is still very clearly in a downtrend, but just for the last couple of months, since February, it has been holding on quite well. AR is currently just under $2. So the $2 area might behave as a bit of a resistance point since it is a round number, and round numbers are a psychological area of resistance, but we haven't really seen it play out as resistance on the chart. So it is definitely possible that this will not be significant and that AR will continue rallying. It doesn't look too bad in my opinion in the short term. And now let's go ahead and look at the 4-hour chart. But just before that, guys, if you are enjoying these updates and you want more updates about AR as well as other altcoins and the crypto market in general, make sure to subscribe. It helps the channel a lot. So please hit that subscribe button if you're getting any value from these videos. And now looking at the 4-hour chart, we can see that AR has been slowly going up, but actually it has not been creating higher highs as of recent. It has been in previous months, but then in the most recent high, it actually got rejected off of a similar area to where it got rejected from back in May. So it actually didn't create a new higher high, and then it started creating lower lows as well. So it is possible that on the 4-hour chart, the uptrend has actually stopped. This makes sense since we have seen Bitcoin getting a very violent dump in the last couple of weeks. So AR is basically just following it, but it did get some support from this support area that is actually quite significant on the 4-hour chart. We've seen this area behave as support before, and AR is looking like it is creating a higher low right here. So there are many trend reversals on this chart. It is quite chaotic, but it is looking like the uptrend has been slowing down and it is trying to recover now. And again, as I said before, if Bitcoin does get the relief rally that I am expecting to about 70k, possibly even higher than that, then AR will likely continue its uptrend and break above this area of $2.7. If it does, this would be confirmation that the AR rally is going to continue, and the rally for AR could be quite significant actually, potentially all the way up to this area from a few months ago, from back in late 2025 and January of this year, all the way up to $4. So this could be a rally of 2x. But first of all, AR needs to cross this area of $2.7. This has been very significant resistance 3 times right here on this chart, as you can see. So this would be the first area for AR to focus on. There is actually another area right here at $2, which is both the psychological area of resistance, as I said before, and also on this chart, it has been quite significant in terms of support and resistance in recent months. So first there's $2, then $2.7, and then the next area of resistance at around $4. These are the crucial resistance areas for us to look at for AR on the 4-hour chart. Every time it crosses one of those areas, it is confirmation that it is working on a move to the next one. So once it crosses $2, we could potentially see AR heading all the way up to $2.7. These would be the next targets for the next couple of weeks. And of course, if AR breaks down below this area of $1.8, which is pretty significant support as well on the 4-hour chart, and where the recent low was, this would confirm that we are continuing in the downtrend and that a rally for AR is quite unlikely. But so far it didn't happen, and the chances for AR to continue to rally are still definitely not too small. And now looking at the AR against Bitcoin chart, we can see that AR has also been in a very clear downtrend against Bitcoin, quite similarly to how it was against the dollar. AR is creating new all-time lows basically against Bitcoin as well. Very similar to what we've seen on the dollar chart. It is just above the all-time lows, slowly grinding up. As I said before, in the recent months, it has actually been outperforming Bitcoin quite significantly, but it is still in a downtrend very clearly. And I would expect in the long term for AR to continue underperforming Bitcoin. I'm also expecting this with most altcoins on the market really. I am quite bearish about altcoins in the long term, both against Bitcoin and against the dollar, since we are still most likely in a bear market in my opinion. Even if we do get the Bitcoin rally up to over 70k, I would still expect it to get rejected and then get all the way back down to 60k and probably even break below 60k and create new lows. And when that happens, I am expecting most altcoins to underperform Bitcoin. This is historically just what happens in bear markets. For us to really see an altcoin season and for altcoins to outperform Bitcoin on the longer time frame, we would first need to see Bitcoin getting into new all-time highs, which is not the reality in the market at all right now. Bitcoin is 50% down from its all-time high, and the chances of an altcoin season are very slim in my opinion. And with AR, it is no different at all. Of course, there can be some exceptions, and AR could be one of them. It is actually not that incredibly unlikely, since the structure of AR is actually quite good, and it has been outperforming Bitcoin recently. But still, in the longer time frame, the chances of it continuing to outperform Bitcoin for many more months are not very high in my opinion, and it is still very clearly in a downtrend, a very steep one as well. Since 2024, we've just seen AR against Bitcoin continue to dump, just like we've seen with the dollar. So I can't say that I'm too bullish about AR in the long term. Again, not financial advice whatsoever. And now let's go ahead and look at the total 3 minus USDT against Bitcoin chart. This is a chart that shows the entire altcoin market against Bitcoin and how altcoins are performing compared to Bitcoin. And on this chart, we can see that recently in the last few weeks, we've actually seen altcoins outperforming Bitcoin. This is a counter trend rally, since this chart is still very clearly in a downtrend in the long term. But in the last few weeks, altcoins have actually been performing quite well, with Bitcoin both getting a relief rally and also dumping after that. So altcoins have been holding on quite well, similarly to what we've seen with AR. AR has been outperforming Bitcoin as well as the altcoin market as a whole. But again, this is still only a short time frame rally, and in the long term, this is still in a downtrend. I am expecting altcoins to underperform Bitcoin in the coming months. This is historically what happens in bear markets, and I believe that we are still in a bear market. And also historically, what led to sustained altcoin seasons back in 2021 and 2017 was this chart getting all the way back down to the support area of about 0.26, 0.25, and currently this chart is at 0.4, which is very significantly above the support area. What historically led to altcoin seasons is both this chart getting back down to the support area, as well as Bitcoin and Ethereum getting all-time highs, and currently both of these things are very far away from happening. This chart is significantly above 0.25, and Bitcoin and Ethereum are much below their all-time highs. Bitcoin is 50% down from its all-time high, Ethereum even more than that. So the chances of an altcoin season anytime soon are very slim in my opinion, and I would expect it to not happen for at least a few more months, probably not anytime in 2026, and potentially even much further than that. So I am quite bearish on altcoins in the long term, and I would avoid being heavy into altcoins at the moment. This is not financial advice whatsoever, but that's just what I personally think. And I would only consider being into some altcoins that have a very good structure in the short term. As I showed you, AR does have potential for a rally and outperforming Bitcoin in the coming weeks, but not in the long term in my opinion, and I would avoid being into it for a prolonged period of time. And now let's go ahead and look at the AR page on CoinMarketCap. We can see that the community sentiment is currently 86% bullish. This is quite high. Usually we see most altcoins being from about 70 to 85% bullish, so 86% is decently high, not anything insane, but the community is actually quite bullish about AR, which in my opinion makes some sense. AR has been performing quite well recently. In the 4-hour chart, it is actually in an uptrend more or less, and it has actually been outperforming Bitcoin, which many altcoins have not been doing. So it is actually performing quite impressively, and I could see it continue to rally in the short term. So 86% bullish makes some sense, but in the long term, I would have to disagree, and I would expect AR to continue dumping and create new all-time lows probably sometime in the next few months, or at least in the next couple of years. So I don't hate this community sentiment, but I can say that I am super bullish. And looking at the crypto fear and greed index, we can see that it is currently at 15, which is extreme fear. This makes sense since we have seen Bitcoin get a very significant and quick dump from 82k all the way down to less than 60k recently, and the fear and greed index went from slight greed actually at over 60 all the way down to 15, which is extreme fear. This is quite typical for a bear market. In bear markets, since the overall trend is downwards, it makes sense for dump to happen very quickly while rallies happen slowly. We've seen Bitcoin rally from about 60k to 82k over a few months and then dump this entire rally from 82k all the way back down to 60k in just a couple of weeks. And this led to people getting very fearful in a very short period of time. Just remember, this is what happens in bear markets. Don't panic too much. In bear markets, we see extreme fear. This is very typical. It's not anything special, and we see significant dumps. I still think that we are in a bear market and that we will continue dumping lower in the long term. But just remember that after every bear market, we get a bull market. This doesn't mean that crypto is over. Not financial advice whatsoever, but just remember not to panic or anything, and this is very typical. And in the long term, we will most likely see Bitcoin creating new all-time highs sometime in the next few years. And now looking at the altcoin season index, this is currently at 47, which is basically right in the middle between altcoin season and Bitcoin season. And it means that Bitcoin has been performing just in the middle of the top 100 altcoins over the past 90 days. And we've actually seen altcoins outperforming Bitcoin in the last few weeks, as I showed you on the total 3 minus USDT against Bitcoin chart. And in my opinion, this will not be sustained. As I said before, in the long term, I'm very bearish on altcoins, and I would expect most of them to underperform Bitcoin significantly. And I think that we will continue seeing this chart dropping lower and getting into Bitcoin season below 25, at least in the long term, as long as the bear market continues, and probably even quite long into the bull market as well. Again, as I said, I think that there is basically no chance for an altcoin season anytime soon, and it will take many months for us to even be able to consider it. So as I said before, I would avoid being heavy into altcoins. So yeah guys, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it and you want more updates about AR as well as other altcoins, make sure to subscribe. It helps the channel a lot. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.